Welcome to the session of SAP for beginners. We are now starting chapter 6, and in chapter 6 we are concentrating more on the technical side of SAP. To start with, we will first talk about the SAP system architecture. So when I say SAP system architecture, which comes in my mind, that the standard SAP GUI, what we see in our computer, is actually the presentation layer. So this SAP GUI, these are available in every user's computer, and although the transactions are done using SAP GUI and people use lot of code, transaction code, they fetch lot of data, lot of report they generate, or lot of business they do through SAP. But the beauty of the system is SAP, that local computer, normally does not save any data in that PC unless you take a dump of a system or you generate a report which you want to save in your system as a Excel file or a PDF file, which SAP gives a provision to do. The transaction data can be saved. The actual transactions are saved in SAP server. Now when I save in SAP server, the presentation layer is actually, since it is there is no data layer there, we can run the presentation layer in any kind of device. Nowadays, lot of virtual desktop interface VDI has started where SAP presentation layer can be run. You can run SAP layer even in some of the mobile device like iPad, like Microsoft Surface Pad, or you can run in normal PC as well. Only thing which you need to remember, that this SAP presentation layer, wherever you are running, that presentation layer, that PC has to be connected with the appropriate network through which it is connected to SAP server. Because SAP normally does not operate on open internet, so we actually may have to go get into a virtual private network or a dedicated network or a private LAN or WAN, and then through that we run the SAP. So the first layer is the presentation layer. Behind the presentation layer, there is a application layer. And in that application layer, whatever we were talking so far, the MMPP, whatever we are telling, those applications run, and there is a server in the application layer. And in application layer server, it can be either a Unix server, it can be a Windows server, it can be a Linux server. And the beauty of the system is the application server as well has little amount of data to be stored. They have only the SAP buffer information to be stored, because many a time there is something called dispatcher which coordinates with the presentation layer and picks up the information or the instruction for the data which needs to be picked up from the database server. And if that happens, if the same information is being asked in very frequently, then that information is actually stored in a SAP buffer, so that you know that you need not have to go into the database server again and again, and the time can be managed. The beauty of the SAP tables are such that they actually use the SAP dispatcher, the SAP buffer and the queue manager in such a way that SAP system never hardly becomes slow. Because even if SAP to do the transaction in SAP, you hardly require a very high resource, network resource. Any standard network with minimum even 256 kilobyte kbps bandwidth also is good enough to run SAP. So one of the reasons why SAP is so successful in market is because of the three-tier architecture, where they segregate the presentation layer, the application layer, and the database layer. Lastly, we go into the database layer, and in database layer, there are a server farm is normally deployed. Lot of database servers are deployed, and these database servers can be there actually. We can plan either in Oracle, in DB2, as MS SQL, MaxDB, and now in the latest they have actually now come into S4 HANA, which I am not discussing now. We will discuss later. So in database server, they whatever the master data we discussed, whatever the transaction data we discussed, and whatever that SAP tables, standard tables, everything is stored in database server. And also the when that some of the tables, the critical tables which are frequently used, they are also stored into the application server, and some of the but the transaction data for sure they are stored into the database server. So in advanced organization, they sometimes use Linux or Unix for the purpose of using the database server for the security purpose, and also they always consider the database server on the high availability mode, that in case there is any disk failure or any RAT failure happen, they deploy always RAT 5 and high availability mode in database server, so that we can actually make the server up in very less time, because this database server is actually the heart of SAP. So traditionally, till few years back, this database server used to have in on-premise server, and many organizations also take pain in creating a lot of server farm and maintaining the server. But over a period of time, now we are finding that many of these database server or application servers are actually put into the cloud as well. The SAP works in a way that there is always a production mode system. Whatever I discussed, there is that is called production system. So there is also a production system where the business transaction happens. But similar to that, SAP also has a quality or testing system where actually the user testing and the configuration testing or the sandboxing activity done. And below quality system, we also have a layer which is called a development system, where the ABAPers or the other technical functional consultants, they develop certain program. So the governance is maintained in such a way, if any change has to be implemented, we develop first into the development system, check thoroughly, but in development system there is no data. In quality system, we normally copy the database server's data, one copy we put into the quality system. We check in the quality system the full functionality of the system, and then we move this system into the production system, which is normally done by the basis consultant. So once the program and the data move to the production system, then we need to be prepared for the consequence of that, because if there is any wrong code or there is something inadvertent code also gets transferred, or if there is any corruption happens, that has a possibility, that has a chance of destroying other programs as well. So that is something a very unique case where we need to take care of the changes and do that. I will just quickly touch upon another important area, which is actually SAP Analytics. So SAP Analytics is extremely something which is very business friendly, and people need to know how your business is performing. So how you know? Because if there may be a millions of data in your transaction system, but those data, unless and until you have a slicing and dicing, and you know what are all things need to be seen, you cannot actually find out what is the key performance index or key performance parameters which need to be noted. So SAP has a system called SAP Business Intelligence System, which is primarily, there are many versions of SAP Business Intelligence over a period of time has developed, but now SAP Business Objects Info View and Business Objects is the latest one, which has earned lot of respect from the developers and from the users. So I don't want to get into the full detail, but to tell you the fundamentals, that is the data source. If you see in the bottommost layer of the, which is the transactional data or the operational data, will be stored there, and subsequent to that there will be the documents or metadata will be stored into the next layer, which we call SAP BW layer actually. And this BW layer is generate some kind of data warehousing we do there, where actually we bring some of the data like master data, transactional data, and then we do the slicing, dicing, the data analysis, data modeling, everything we do in this BW layer, and we create some kind of information cube. Those information cube, using some Bex query, we now then transport to the analytics layer, and in the analytics layer we create something which is required to be seen by the business actually. So this is something, another area which is gaining lot of importance, and when I will discuss S4 HANA, I will show you that how the whole structure has changed when HANA has come, because some of the analytics are actually embedded in the standard SAP. Today, when you buy SAP, you need to buy separately SAP license for all these content, all these areas, including the analytics. Another license need to be bought. But when you go for HANA, some of the things are already there. Also, SAP has another interesting area called Fury, and Fury is capable of doing a lot of interface, a lot of manual work, automation through Fury, which can be done. The user interface can be done using Fury without any going through the code or going through any transaction code, or it is very user friendly way you can do. But then today again in CC also Fury needs to be separately purchased. If you go for S4 HANA, Fury and Analytics have already come directly in S4 HANA, and that gives a definitely a upper hand to SAP. So if I really simplify this, you can see that fundamentally there are two databases. One is ERP, SAP Basic ERP database, and then there will be some kind of BW database will be there, and then there are a lot of tables will be there outside this system, and then using either the different business process integration BAPIs, or using some kind of IDOC, or using some kind of JCO, those links, those informations are bringing from those tables to the transaction database. And then finally, we actually do there is a OLAP extractor we use to read the BW data, and then from there we take the data from BW, we use OLAP extractor, we take the BW data, and finally it will go to the analytics actually. So it's a full subject, and it needs lot of attention to understand that SAP is as a ERP has got integration with almost all other automation system, and now SAP has developed lot of connectors which can be without any problem, without any lot of effort, you can actually do the integration, and therefore it's a area which need to be used, which need to be nurtured, and the analytics and other area can be taken care of. So that's how the SAP transaction happens. Now I will come to one quick area of one point of, because I talked about SD, MM, FI, CO, those are all functional area. I will come one area which is a technical area, which is called SAP Basis. So SAP Basis is the module, or rather SAP Basis consultant is the consultant who has capability of talking to who to managing these thing what I just now shown you, the database administration, the integration with ABAP, integration with the batch administration. How do we transport the program from the quality system to production system? Then how do you do the SAP solution interface you can do? So Basis consultant primarily has got the has us to work very closely with the administration of the administration team of the server administration team. He has to closely work with the network administration team, because as I told you, SAP works in a very secure network, so network admin plays a very important role, and Basis consultant is also responsible for the Basis SAP security. So therefore they have to work very closely with the database admin team also, and obviously they have to talk with the OS admin team as well. Now, because the SAP security and SAP GRC are the two modules which are also coming under parlance of Basis. Basis has to take care of the privileged access control of the people. Like for instance, if any person who is having access, who is not supposed to have access in some system, that control has to be implemented using the Basis consultant team. So Basis is very important, and they are very keen, they are very close to the database and the SAP architecture. So I thought I will cover that. And in the next video, I will again go back to ABAP, which is also an important part of SAP implementation. And let us stop here, and then we will go back to ABAP and we will take it forward from there actually. Thank you very much for attending this session. Thank you.